Summary of the poem On My First Son by Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson's poem On My First Son is a poignant elegy reflecting on the deep sorrow and personal loss the poet feels after the death of his young son. The poem's overall meaning is a blend of grief, acceptance, and philosophical reflection on life and death. The poem begins with Jonson bidding a sorrowful farewell to his son, whom he describes as the child of my right hand, and joy. This phrase highlights the profound importance of the child in his life, symbolizing both the deep connection they shared and the joy the child brought him. The rhythmic structure of this line follows the iambic pentameter, a pattern where each line typically has 10 syllables with a rhythm of unstressed and stressed syllables. This meter provides a steady, reflective tone, suitable for the poem's somber subject matter. In the next lines, Jonson expresses guilt for having loved his son too much, admitting that he placed excessive hope and emotional investment in the child. He views his son's short life, only 7 years, as a temporary gift from fate, which he now must repay through the sorrow of loss. The consistent iambic meter continues, reinforcing the formal structure of the poem while Jonson grapples with his feelings of guilt and loss. Jonson contemplates the inevitability of his son's death, viewing it as something predetermined by fate. He expresses a wish to abandon fatherhood altogether to escape the pain of losing a child, reflecting on the paradox of mourning a state that might actually be enviable. He argues that death provides an escape from the hardships and suffering of life, including the burdens of old age. The poem's rhythm and meter mirror Jonson's contemplative state, with each line carefully structured to balance emotion and philosophical reflection. As the poem progresses, Jonson imagines his son resting peacefully, suggesting that his son's grave would proudly declare that he is Jonson's best piece of poetry. Here, Jonson elevates his son above his own literary achievements, suggesting that his son's memory will endure as his greatest creation. This line uses the iambic pentameter to underline the importance of the child's memory and the poet's deep love for him. In the concluding lines, Jonson vows to change his approach to love and attachment, resolving never to love anything too deeply to avoid future heartbreak. This resolution reflects Jonson's attempt to protect himself from further emotional pain by moderating his attachments. The poem's structure, with its consistent meter and careful rhythm, underscores the poet's earnest and measured approach to his profound grief and his subsequent vow. Overall, On My First Son combines a formal structure with deeply personal emotion. The iambic pentameter gives the poem a sense of dignity and control, while the content explores themes of loss, guilt, and philosophical contemplation about life and death. The poem's rhythm and meter contribute to its reflective tone, making it a powerful expression of a father's sorrow and acceptance.
Line-by-line explanation of the poem On My First Son by Ben Jonson.
In the first line, "Farewell, thou child of my right hand, and joy," Jonson bids a sorrowful farewell to his son, who was a significant part of his life and happiness. The phrase "child of my right hand" has a biblical reference, symbolizing the importance and closeness of the child to the father. The rhythm of this line emphasizes the personal loss with its steady, reflective beat, as Jonson contemplates the deep bond he had with his son. The iambic meter, typical in much of Jonson's poetry, provides a formal structure that contrasts with the emotional depth of the words. In the second line, "My sin was too much hope of thee, loved boy," Jonson confesses a sense of guilt, believing he loved his son too much. The word sin here refers to the emotional vulnerability of becoming too attached to someone, knowing that life is unpredictable. The meter continues in iambic pentameter, maintaining a balanced rhythm, but the tone shifts to one of regret. The stresses fall naturally on sin and hope, emphasizing Jonson's perceived emotional fault. The third line, "7 years thou wert lent to me, and I thee pay," presents the idea that Jonson's son was a temporary gift from fate, lent to him for 7 years. The poet now feels he must pay for this time by accepting his son's death. The meter in this line remains consistent with the iambic rhythm, and the word lent creates a subtle pause, allowing the reader to reflect on the transient nature of life. exacted by thy fate, on the just day, line 4, shows Jonson's acceptance of his son's death as part of fate's design. The word exacted suggests that death is a form of payment owed, reinforcing the metaphor from the previous line. The iambic pentameter here underscores the inevitability of death, with the word just receiving a stress that highlights the fairness Jonson is trying to reconcile with. In line 5, "Oh, could I lose all father now?" For why, Jonson expresses a desire to give up being a father altogether to avoid future grief. The sudden exclamation "oh" breaks the steady rhythm, introducing an emotional outburst. The irregularity in the meter mirrors Jonson's inner turmoil, as he contemplates escaping the pain of fatherhood. Will man lament the state he should envy? Line 6 sees Jonson questioning why people mourn the dead when death is a state to be envied. In this line, the poet reflects on death as a peaceful escape from life's suffering. The rhythm is steady, as the question posed is more philosophical, pondering the human tendency to grieve rather than celebrate death's freedom. In line 7, "To have so soon scapt worlds and flesh's rage," Jonson consoles himself with the thought that his son has escaped the physical and emotional hardships of life. The steady iambic pentameter here mirrors Jonson's resigned tone as he accepts his son's death as a kind of mercy. The stresses on scapt and rage emphasize the relief from suffering that death provides. And if no other misery, yet age? Line 8 continues this reflection, noting that even if his son avoided no other miseries, he has at least been spared the suffering that comes with old age. The line's rhythm reinforces Jonson's resigned tone, with age receiving a final stress, signaling it as the ultimate misery his son has escaped. Line 9, "Rest in soft peace," and, "asked, say, here doth lie," sees Jonson wishing for his son to rest in peace. He imagines his son's grave responding if asked, reflecting the idea of peace beyond death. The gentle rhythm of this line mirrors the poet's tender wish for his son's peaceful rest. Ben Jonson, his best piece of poetry, line 10, is a powerful metaphor in which Jonson calls his son his greatest creation, greater than any of his literary works. The iambic pentameter here emphasizes the significance of this statement, with the stresses on best and poetry elevating the son's importance above all else Jonson has created. Line 11, "For whose sake henceforth all his vows be such," shows Jonson's determination to change his future behavior because of his son's death. The steady meter reflects Jonson's resolve, and the word vows suggests a solemn promise to himself, shaping his emotional future. Finally, "as what he loves may never like too much," line 12, captures Jonson's vow to never love anything too deeply again, to avoid the pain of loss. The rhythm reinforces the finality of this resolution, with the stress on never underlining Jonson's intention to guard against future emotional attachment. Throughout the poem, Jonson uses iambic pentameter, maintaining a regular rhythm that contrasts with the emotional turbulence of the content. This formal structure helps to give the poem a reflective, meditative tone, even as it grapples with intense grief and loss.
About the poet. Ben Jonson was born on June 11, 1572, in London, England. He was a prominent playwright, poet, and actor of the late 16th and early 17th centuries, renowned for his sharp wit and satirical prowess. Jonson's works include a range of plays, comedies, and masques, with notable plays such as Volpone and The Alchemist showcasing his talent for blending humor with social critique. His poetry, including the elegy On My First Son, reflects his deep emotional and philosophical insights. Jonson was a contemporary of William Shakespeare and often engaged in both collaboration and rivalry with him. His influence extended beyond his lifetime, contributing significantly to English drama and poetry. Jonson was awarded a royal pension by King James I in recognition of his contributions to literature. He passed away on August 6, 1637, leaving a lasting legacy in English literary history.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.